Today's date is March 29th, 1985. This is a view from where the witness stood.
Boyd was probably our only witness at that point. He was critical to this case.
Did you hear anything?
Yes,
What did you hear?
I heard some gunshots.
This is a rural area. I could almost guarantee you would see some deer. But it wasn't deer hunting season.
She had a routine and never broke that routine.
We didn't know if she was missing or if she was dead.
Start feeling your eyes getting heavy.
The decision to put him under hypnosis was made because time was of the essence.
Tell me everything that you see.
This is a location of where the spent casing was found.
Blood found at the scene was determined to be human blood.
You were out there, weren't you? Out there riding around and you saw this pretty girl. Mark off my ass, please.
That's when he'd scream out, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry."
Colon, Michigan, is a little town on the east side of the county. It's out in the country in a rural area, sort of a little idyllic setting, far away from most everything.
It's a very small community with a great deal of wooded and vacant land.
It's a beautiful place. It's in the middle of nowhere.
In the early summer of 1985, on an isolated dirt track in the woods, a telephone technician starts his day by checking poles and lines.
He noticed something in the ground. It was dark. It appeared to be wet. And he looked more closely, and he saw what he thought were some blue jeans, just a couple inches down. There were flies that were swirling around the area, and he saw flesh, which appeared to be from a decomposing body. He ran down and then called the law enforcement agencies.
Local authorities rushed their nearest detective to the scene.
When I got there, he took me back, showed me the spot. Could see the belt and skin and material. And the smell. You smell a dead body one time, you'll never forget it. It was quite a shallow grave. I could tell that the body was face down, and that was about all.
The officer calls in the gruesome discovery, and soon crime techs arrive to begin the exhumation.
Hours were spent meticulously going through the dirt, looking for any evidence. Exhuming this body, even as shallow as the grave was, took a long time. We saw it was a white female.
She was decomposed to such an extent that identification was impossible at that point.
And the clothing matched the highly unusual missing persons report we had 8 weeks before on the other side of the county. And there wasn't anybody else missing. So we figured it was that particular missing lady. We did not know how she got there, but we could tell she had been shot 3 times. In the arm, the shoulder, and she was shot in the head.
Surveying the crime scene, investigators believe the location and depth of the grave is significant.
It was a very shallow grave. what must have been somebody who had been in a hurry to bury the body.
The area where the body was found was a 2-track lane that run off of Ralston Road, and it run along the river. You'd have to know the area, be from the area. It'd be hard to stumble across.
So we knew the killer was somebody that was familiar with this area.
But we had no idea who did it.
Three Rivers is a centrally located town amongst three rivers, the Portage, the Rocky, and the St. Joe River. If you have neighbors, you know your neighbors. People have always felt safe in Three Rivers.
The quiet community is where a local couple falls in love and looks forward to starting a family.
Bruce Van Busker was a Three Rivers police officer. He married Linda Jacobs. She was a very nice girl from a very nice family. Linda's reputation was as a strong Christian woman.
They had 2 children, 2 little girls.
They were very happy for a number of years.
But the marriage didn't last long.
The relationship was splintered by infidelity.
There were some hard feelings about the divorce.
They had a rough separation, as I understand it.
And so then she was a single mom, and she was, taking care of these girls with the help of her parents.
Linda was obviously in the process of putting her life back together. And she just rented a house out in the more rural area of Three Rivers out on Day Road.
I was very close with the family. We met at a rural church near their community. Linda was resilient and independent and smart. I offered my home because I was traveling all over the country. And when I was in that area, stayed with Linda's parents, Paul and Evelyn. So Linda and her girls moved into my home. She didn't have outside the home employment. So Linda and the girls made a lemonade stand. She baked enough loaves of bread every month to sell them. Just astonishing how resourceful she was. Whenever she had some time for herself, Linda loved to go walking the trails in the area.
In early spring, the 26-year-old mother asks her parents to watch the kids and heads off on her walk.
This was a beautiful 70-degree day. The kind of day people go out and just enjoy being out after being cooped up.
But when it got dark, she did not reappear to pick up her children.
She was a devoted mother. The idea that Linda would neglect picking up her daughters is beyond uncharacteristic. It just would not happen.
Paul and Evelyn Jacobs phone friends and neighbors, hoping someone has seen their daughter. With no sign of Linda, they contact authorities.
March 26th, we received a complaint of a missing person out in the county.
Everybody was very concerned because she just disappeared.
Linda had led an exemplary life. She never had been in any trouble. She didn't drink. She didn't use drugs. She was active in her church.
There was very mysterious. There was a real concern to find Linda. Was really all hands on deck.
Her parents were very upset. They told us what Linda was wearing and gave us a picture of her. They were absolutely certain that she had a walk routine. They said she walks at a certain time and she takes a certain route and never broke that routine. We went out to the area the next day.
A large number of law enforcement officers in canvassing.
The road she was walking on was rural. No street lights, no commercial enterprises. Farm fields, woods, houses not very close together.
It turned out the neighbors had seen Linda walk by, but they didn't have any more information. Then we talked to a man that lived right near the intersection of Day and Mount Zion Road.
The intersection is only about 1.5 miles from Linda's house.
And he said the day before, his son heard gunshots, and the boy, he walked up on a hill a short distance from his house and looked down at the intersection. There was a car there, and there was a man putting something in the trunk of the car. I knew something was seriously wrong.
Do you remember this man that you saw? Do you remember what this man's hair looked like, Todd?
Yeah, the part.
This part here, you mean?
Yes, it was, yeah.
We waited to see how the ex-husband was going to react. You give him a little rope, maybe he'll hang himself if he's involved.
A 1.5 miles from the home of missing 26-year-old Linda Van Buskirk, investigators canvass the route and learn a young boy may have witnessed something.
Todd, the young boy, said that he was up in the yard, and that's when he heard gunshots and saw the person dragging what he thought was a deer onto the roadway and put it into a vehicle.
This is a rural area. If you drove out there tonight, I could almost guarantee you would see some deer. But it wasn't deer hunting season.
At about 3:30, the school bus comes through there.
It would have corresponded time-wise when Linda had disappeared, probably around 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
The investigators took it seriously right from the start that this could be related to the missing person.
Investigators hope with further questioning, 10-year-old Todd might remember something that could help find Linda.
This is the deposition of Frank Todd Terrell. Deposition is also being videotaped.
The young boy is very impressionable, so he was interviewed very carefully and thoroughly.
Did you hear?
Yes.
What did you hear?
I heard some gunshots.
Okay, all right, slow down just a little bit.
He was an earnest little guy. It was a long ways away, several hundred yards from where he was to what he saw, but he tried to tell us what he could.
How did you know they were gunshots?
Because my dad, we used to go hunting in that. And, we tried to get a deer and...
So you went to the top of the tree, right?
Yes.
And so you threw the road then?
Yes.
Did you see anybody?
Yes.
The boy said he saw a man in a dark hatchback.
He was pulling something out of the ditch.
Pulling something out of the ditch.
Looked like they were loading it in the back of the car is what he thought.
You said you thought it was a deer, right?
Yes.
So what he was dragging was behind the car when you saw it the first time.
I know. It was beside the car. In a ditch. And we were dragging.
Investigators asked Todd to bring them to the exact spot where he saw the vehicle and the deer.
Today's date is March 29th, 1985. We're at the intersection of Zion, Bent Road. This will be a general view of the crime scene.
We went out and canvassed the area.
This is the location of the witness. Approximate location as he viewed the incident. This is a view from the viewpoint of where the witness stood.
Investigators determined Linda's walking route would have taken her through this exact intersection.
We went down to where the boy said This is where the car was at. And about maybe 15 feet off the edge of this road, we noticed a blood spot. It's a significant amount of blood. Probably about 12 to 15 inches in diameter. But we didn't know if it was animal or human. So we needed to get the blood tested. We collected samples of the blood and preserved that evidence. Down the road from where the blood spot was,
This is the location of where the spent casing was found.
found shell casings. And it turned out that brass casing was from the jacketed hollow point, which at the time was a common bullet for police officers, but not real common for the public.
The discovery of the shell casings confirms Todd's story.
Tape is now concluded.
Investigators put out a countywide alert, hoping someone will spot the dark hatchback.
We were focusing on the car, and we get this information out to the Three Rivers Police Department, state police. We were stopping people and asked if we could take a look in their trunk for a deer.
Believing the hunter may have seen Linda, investigators are desperate to find the man.
Was the man wearing glasses?
Don't know.
Todd becomes a critical witness at that point. The decision to put him under hypnosis was made because time was of the essence.
The parents agreed.
What we called Todd and all the nerves.
We knew he was probably our only witness at that point. He was critical to this case, and we had to do everything we can to find out what he knew, because there was nobody else.
Now what I'm going to ask you to do is try to be as comfortable as possible. You set that cord like this and hold it up, and I want you to stare at that cord. And while you're staring, I'm going to talk. When we're all through, it's yours. Okay? Start feeling your eyes getting heavy. Tell me everything you see.
The guy that was looking down at the tape.
What was he pulling out of the ditch?
The girl.
In a desperate move to find missing mother Linda Van Buskirk, Three Rivers investigators make the bold decision to hypnotize a 10-year-old eyewitness.
When he was hypnotized, Todd said that there was this struggle with a man and a woman out on the road near his house.
It was not a deer that was put in the trunk.
What was he pulling out of the ditch?
The girl.
Tell me what it looks like from what you see. What do you see?
Brown shoes. Blonde hair. Open his back. Fire in the car.
The hypnosis confirms investigators' fears.
The theory was that Linda was missing and a man had abducted her.
Boy, definitely heard some shots. And some of the bullet fragments, including the jacket, were found at the scene.
So now we didn't know if she was missing or if she was dead.
Investigators visit the Jacobs home to inform Linda's family of the worrying developments.
We tried to keep the family apprised of what we knew. Obviously, their daughter's missing, and they're very frightened.
I was notified after the fact and was able to spend time with Paul and Evelyn Jacobs. They were alarmed and terribly concerned.
The search for the dark hatchback expands as neighboring counties are notified and more people step in to help.
We brought all the police agencies together. The Michigan State Police involved, the St. Joseph County Sheriff's Department involved, the Three Rivers Police Department involved.
And this disappearance was very much publicized in the papers and word of mouth. So people were sort of on the alert for something that might be suspicious.
So everybody was looking for her in the hatchback.
They couldn't find the car. It was just nowhere.
Detectives are pursuing every possible avenue, starting with Linda's ex-husband, Three Rivers police officer Bruce Van Buskirk.
You had this question mark about her ex-husband, Bruce, as a suspect. Would he have been a part of the incident?
They had a rough divorce, and then you add the fact that he was a police officer for the city of Three Rivers, and the jacketed hollow point casings at the scene were type of ammunition law enforcement carry. That's definitely suspicious.
Officer Van Buskirk insists he was on patrol at the time Linda went missing, but there's no concrete evidence to support his alibi.
He was still up on the list. We never forgot him or put him on the back burner. We just waited to see how he was going to react. You give him a little rope, maybe he'll hang himself if he's involved.
With the young mother missing more than 3 days, concern escalates when the blood report comes back from the crime lab.
The analysis confirmed what we suspected. Blood found at the scene was determined to be human blood. So that, along with what Todd saw at the intersection, this was now a homicide investigation.
Now we're in a mad search to find the 38 or 357 gun, and it's probably law enforcement. Every certified officer that carries a weapon, we're going to take his weapon, take it to the crime lab, and check for ballistics. Trying to prove or disprove a fellow officer is a very tough thing to do. It'd be like trying to do it to your brother.
Testing every police-issued weapon in surrounding counties could take weeks.
You can't take all the guns away from the cops and then send them all to the lab, so we do them in groups. Starting with her husband, Bruce Van Buskirk.
In the meantime, investigators hope their eyewitness can help identify the man he saw on the road.
Todd met with a sketch artist, and a sketch was made.
Do you remember this man that you saw at the car? Do you remember what this man's hair looked like, Todd?
Yeah, he had his hair curved around.
What do you mean curved the wrong way?
Like he was part the wrong way.
This part here, you mean?
Yes, it was that.
A drawing was published from the eyewitness account of the young child, Todd. And that was circulated locally. Suddenly, that became the face of this evilness.
Fine, everybody take a photograph to the right. Does that look like it?
26-year-old mother Linda Van Buskirk is still missing, but evidence collected from the crime scene points to homicide. With the help of their 10-year-old eyewitness, police have published a sketch of the suspect.
Does that look like it? Okay.
The sketch became, headline news at the time. Suddenly, everybody's more concerned, and it puts you on guard. It's the loss of innocence.
Unfortunately, the man in the sketch is not easily identified.
The little boy had given some identification, so we had a composite. And composite pictures are terrible. At that time, you'd lay these transparencies over and come up with a face that never looked like anybody that had ever existed.
the sketch does not resemble Officer Bruce Van Buskirk, investigators have him on their shortlist.
We focused in on Bruce Van Buskirk because of his divorce with Linda. There was some child custody issues. They had a rough divorce. There's a financial benefit in a divorce, especially if he gets custody, and he was fighting for that. He was a Three Rivers police officer, and he is a firearms expert.
Ballistics analysis soon confirms the bullets found by the road did not come from Officer Van Buskirk's gun. It is still possible he used an unidentified gun, but for now, there is no proof he's involved in the crime. Investigators turn their sights to the other man in Three Rivers who had a close relationship with Linda.
Jim Briney was the owner of the property that Linda was living at.
She was divorced, he wasn't married, he wasn't from Three Rivers. Who is this guy, and why is he talking to Linda Van Buskirk? So they get him in and they treat him quite harshly.
We worked him over really good, verbally.
Investigators are soon able to confirm Jim's alibi.
We were able to make sure he wasn't in town the day that Linda Van Buskirk come up missing. And so we were able to clear him.
Investigators are unable to link their short list of suspects to Linda's disappearance and likely murder. And there is no sign of the dark hatchback or the man in the sketch.
We worked a lot of hours for a lot of days trying to get this case solved. Tips drifted in, but it turns out to be really nothing.
Six weeks pass with no new leads, and investigators fear Linda may never be found. In late spring, an urgent call comes in from a man who's discovered something strange 16 miles east of Three Rivers on a remote road outside the town of Colon.
He saw the dark spot and what appeared to be jeans. That's when he called the sheriff's department.
When the crime lab got there, the body was exhumed.
And they opened the ground and the flies just came swarming out.
I could tell it was a white female. The body was face down. You could not identify her from the body buried that long.
I could see the back of her blue jeans, and I could see her wristwatch.
The body is sent for an autopsy.
A pathologist conducted a post-mortem examination. He was able to obtain the dental records and made an identification that this was, in fact, the body of Linda.
I actually knew her. She was 2 grades behind me in school, and it was very emotional for me.
The autopsy ruled out sexual assault.
She had been shot 3 times, including one time in the head.
The first bullet that hit her was in her arm. The second bullet was shot through her shoulder. The final shot was on the left side of her skull, straight through the other side. This was not something that was done in a fit of rage or self-defense or anything else. It was a terrible murder. It was an execution.
The The body of Linda Van Buskirk has been found on a 2-track dirt road outside the town of Colon, Michigan. Autopsy results confirm she was shot 3 times in what appears to be an execution.
The pathologist, he says, see the angle? He said, that's the angle that the shooter shot. So she was down on the ground. He walked up and finished her off.
When Linda's body was found, it was devastating for Paul Jacobs and for Evelyn and Linda's daughters. They were just profoundly devastated.
Determined to get justice for Linda and her family, they focus on the remote burial site, located about 4 miles outside of town.
We knew it must have been somebody who had been in a hurry to bury the body because it was so shallow. We knew it was somebody that was familiar with this area, including 2 tracks that go back into some pretty desolate spots.
With very few businesses, law enforcement is hoping someone in the tiny community noticed something.
The gas station attendant's wife in the village of Colon said that she saw Ricky Moore in town the day that Linda Van Buskirk come up missing.
Ricky Moore's father, Larry Moore, was a sergeant at the sheriff's department. Ricky was a reserve deputy for Mendon.
Police learned that Ricky Moore lived with his parents in the city of Three Rivers, not too far from the intersection where Linda was murdered. But they also had a cottage or cabin in Colon.
He was interviewed by the sheriff's department a couple times, and he never refused.
You know the officers or some of them there in Three Rivers? You're familiar with? Yes, sir. Are you familiar with Bruce Van Buskirk?
Yes, sir. Matter of fact, he found my old car.
Oh, did you know Linda then? Had you ever met her?
No, sir.
Ricky Moore told investigators that he had indeed been to his parents' cabin in Colon the night of the disappearance. He said that he had gone there to check for a break-in. Ricky was actually familiar with this particular area in the 2-track where the body was found.
Well, as you know, we're looking for a dark-colored hatchback type vehicle. Do you have one of those?
Not a hatchback, no, sir. We got a Chevy S10 pickup.
Though the car does not match the one described by eyewitness Todd Terrell, Ricky agrees to let them search it, but tests yield no blood in the vehicle. Still, detectives are not ready to rule out Ricky Moore.
But the discovery of Linda's body near Colon and the fact that he did have access to firearms as an auxiliary police officer, Ricky Moore became a suspect at that point.
You were out there, weren't you? Out there riding around and you saw this pretty girl.
The interview has its desired effect. His father, Sergeant Moore, collects him, and they head home. Keeping the heat on, investigators are not far behind.
We went to the house, knocked on the door, and we said, we're here to get the gun.
He was very hesitant. His demeanor changed dramatically.
He hem-hawed around, and then his dad got mad at him, and he said, get your butt upstairs, get that gun. So he went upstairs, and he was up there for 5 or 10 minutes. He finally came down. He was white as a sheet, sweating like you can't ever imagine. He finally gave us the gun. When me and other detective sergeant walked out of the house, we looked at each other and said, did you see what I saw? I said, I sure did. He said, get that gun to the lab today.
Ricky's gun is sent to ballistics for immediate analysis. His resistance gives investigators cause to get a warrant to search his home.
They search his bedroom.
They found the hollow point bullets. I mean, that's just one more straw. But doesn't prove you're a murder. The firearms expert told us that whoever possessed this gun tried to damage the barrel.
Can you explain how the gun got damaged? Trying to clean the lead out of it. Just a piece? A couple pieces lodged in the barrel. Right. And you told me that you used a screwdriver to clean this piece of lead out? Right.
Because of things that he did to the gun, we couldn't match the weapon.
But there is the eyewitness to the crime. Investigators ask Todd Terrell if he can identify the man he saw on the road in a lineup.
Today's date is 5/17 of 85. Time is 10:32.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to turn profile. You're going to be observed by several witnesses.
We bring the boy in, we have him try to make an identification, and Todd would look through this window, one-way glass.
Everybody take a quarter turn to the right. Once again, quarter turn to the right.
Unfortunately, Todd said he didn't see the person who had been at the intersection in the lineup. In fact, this sketch of the person that Todd made didn't look like Ricky Moore at all.
But that doesn't mean he didn't see him. It's just, well, the boy wasn't able to identify him because he's 200 yards away.
It's a disappointing blow to the case. Investigators return to Ricky's firearm, hoping critical evidence can be salvaged. If recovered, the unique lands and grooves transferred from the barrel onto the bullet are considered to be the gun's ballistic fingerprint.
Investigators continued to keep firing rounds through Ricky Moore's firearm until it cleaned out enough that he could make a comparison. And eventually, I got a cough, and he said, "Are you sitting down?" I sat down, and he says, "I made him on the gun." The bullets found in the scene came from Ricky Moore's firearm.
Testing confirms the bullets recovered from the crime scene match Ricky Moore's weapon, eliminating other suspects.
It was clear to us that we had sufficient evidence to charge Ricky Moore.
We went to the house and we put him in handcuffs.
One of those rounds recovered come from your gun. Can't be. It's a positive identification. There is absolutely no doubt. And I would have had a gun so he can kill himself. Save all his handsome.
When he is charged with murder, though, Ricky Moore claims he is innocent.
He said, "I didn't do it," and his parents, I think, believe that he didn't do it, and they spent a considerable sum hiring a lawyer for him.
In an attempt to demonstrate his innocence, Ricky Moore consents to a polygraph test.
With the polygraph examiner, the critical question was, did you kill Linda Van Busker? When he said he did not kill Linda Van Busker, the test indicated that Ricky Moore was lying. When he finished, the polygraph examiner said to him, "There's something I don't understand. Why did you do it?"
His attorney went in there, and his dad went in there. And I heard an animalistic wailing. And Ricky told him what he did. And he starts confessing.
I heard Ricky scream out to his dad, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry."
Investigators can only speculate about Ricky's motive for killing Linda.
Most of these cases like this are sexually motivated. and he was kind of a loner.
He had purchased a car from Bruce Van Buskirk, so he'd been out to Van Buskirk's house, and he saw her there. The theory is that he was interested in her, and he stalked her, and that he was rebuffed by her, and he killed her.
Ricky Moore waives his right to a trial by jury and is tried in front of a judge. Tensions are high.
Ricky Moore pled not guilty by reason of insanity.
The prosecutors present the case and show evidence to support a conviction. We find the body in Colon. He's got no firm alibi. He's reluctant to give up the gun. He scratches the barrel to affect the ability to identify it. Then that gun is matched to bullets that killed Van Buskirk.
Finally, on May 13, 1986, the judge reads the verdict.
Judge Corsilia rendered his opinion of guilty in the first-degree murder. Evidence that we presented convinced him beyond a reasonable doubt Ricky Moore was the killer and that it was premeditated. The sentencing for first-degree murder in Michigan is life with parole.
Linda Van Buskirk was taken too soon, but she will never be forgotten.
I think about how exquisitely good and beautiful she was, in every sense of the word. That just compounds the tragedy and the horror of the loss of Linda's life.
Mama, loving ain't pretty much big on love. As the snow falls gently from above, I'm reminded of that love. Each fleeting memory, pure and bright, ancient scenes of our loves. No memories drifting down in each delicate flake. Our love is found, whispers of you in the winter's chill.